Okay, so we are ready to go on this. Just need to clean up where the glue got on the whole side. That's a little, that ate in there a little bit, but that's cool. It's 400 grit, made quick work of that. Come back, polish it out with the 600. Can't even tell it was there. Okay. Make sure the other side looks good. Yeah, there's one right there. Okay. No fingerprints, no drips. Nothing's hanging off the edge weird. All these are in, they're still feeling good. Those are still on. I didn't knock them off, surprisingly. That's on. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint everything on this in red primer, just my red super primer. So what I need to do, so I need to figure out how to do this. My first plan was just to flip it over and was just to hold it and paint the bottom and the sides, and then leave it sitting. And then after that dried, flip it over and just set it on top, which is what I think I'm going to do. So that's fine. Yeah, that'll be okay. So let's get that going. Actually, I'm sitting here looking at this and I can see some spots I need to clean up. So one nice thing about the airbrush is, as long as it's cleaned out, you can use it to kind of blow stuff around. Use it to dust this stuff off real good. And do a very good job of going over this beforehand. Okay. Okay. Set those there. Let me grab this. And I'm going to wipe this down real good with our anti-static plastic cleaner. That ring pops off. That doesn't matter because that ring doesn't really do much of anything anyway. Oh wow, you can actually feel the difference in the plastic. Okay. So I'm probably going to end up painting this in 3 steps. I'm probably end up painting all of the deck, and then I'll do the sides. I'll just paint the bottom of the, I'm just going to paint the bottom of it. I'll just start from there and just work forward, get it so far done we can stop, let it dry for a little while, and then we can grab it and hit the rest of it. Well, actually, I have an idea. So on this, I plan to use the primer as the anti-fouling color. For the bottom of it. Okay, carefully flip it over. Okay. Okay, that was a whole cup. You can see how heavy I'm putting that on. That's a lot of plastic to cover though. Make sure it sits down, doesn't bust off any of that stuff on the bow. Okay. And then we'll come back in and pick it right back up where we left off. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stop and I'm going to let this dry real good, and then we can come back and pick it up and we can spray basically the front third of it. And then when that's completely done, then we can just grab onto it and we can paint the whole upper deck, and we can just set it on the ground. We can just set it on the table, and it'll basically sit on these, and that'll keep it that'll keep it from messing that up, and it should be good to go. So we'll let this dry, and then we'll come back and we'll finish this off. Okay, so I'm gonna pass this off as a learning lesson. Not that I can't make up my mind, but all seriousness, I've changed my mind on how I want to do the primer on this. So I realized that I'm going to paint the top red, and it's going to be slightly different than the primer red. And if I don't spray that top with a different primer color, you're probably not going to be able to see it very well against the primer. See that red against the primer, and I don't want dry spots or weird spots or anything. So I'm just going to do this a little differently than what I had initially planned. And what I was saying about the learning thing was, you know, don't be afraid to change stuff up. If you start to do a project a certain way and you're like, hey, wait a minute, that ain't gonna work, stop, do something else. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. So now I'll let that dry. And the new plan is similar to the old plan. I'm going to mask off where the red is and leave that for the bottom of the hole. I'm going to leave that for the below waterline color. And then I'm going to paint the sides black. They're going to get done BL1. And then when I'm done with the BL1, then I'll mask all that off, and then I'll re-primer the whole upper decks and structure in the gray primer, and then I'll shoot that red, and then I should be able to see everything and make sure everything looks like I want it to and colored out like I wanted it to. So again, we're back to just letting this dry, and then we'll get this masked off. Okay, so we are getting ready to shoot the paint on this thing. So I want to show you this when So I tape the base on to set my waterline mark. Then I just put my tape roll with my Sharpie pen. Set this down, make sure you have access from it from stem to stern. And then I just took this, held the ship down. There we go. Okay. Now this line, that is incredibly close to where we need it to be already, so that is perfect. But the line doesn't have to be absolutely spot on 100%, because if you just drop down a tiny bit with your tape, you just paint right over the top of it. If you wanted to make that a little higher, you know, you could have put something else underneath it, like the handle that would have lifted it up a tiny bit, you know. However, but that's how I did that. I just wanted to show that before I started taping it off. I'm not going to show me taping it off online. Obviously, all I'm going to do is just follow that line, make sure everything under it's taped off. There's not much to that. So let me get that taped off, and we'll get in here and we'll start getting this thing painted. Okay, so I got that all taped up, and before anybody asks, that is a 1-inch wide piece of tape. That's 12, that's 13, it's 1 inch wide. That's how wide that was to make that mark, so that's where you want to be with that. Let me get this ready. So we're going to use our BL1, just our generic base coat black. Let me put this over here. And then I'm just going to start from the front here. Now you really only need to come up to the top of this deck line. Everything above that's going to be the red. Make sure that's on there nice and smooth. It's looking good. You don't really want to flood that on too much. And if you spray up and kind of away from the tape line, that should help you keep it from wicking underneath it. One other way of doing that, if you wanted to, is you could have repainted over the very edge of that with some of the red primer, and then if any wicked under, it would just get under it and dry. And then when you pulled it in, when you painted over it, the paint would have already sealed over the edge of the tape. If that makes sense. So I know it's going to turn out a little blotchy just because of how much area I have to cover with that thing. But as long as it's completely covered, you see there's a couple of spots that I've kind of missed. As long as you cover it completely, I mean, you're going to have to come back in, you're going to have to clear coat the side and the bow to put the decals on. And then you're going to have to come back in and that's weird. But anyway, you're going to have to come back in, do the clear for the decals, and then come back over it all with the semi-gloss or the satin. I'm going to do it in the matte. I'm going to do it honey matte. But that's going to be a long time from now. No, actually it won't be too long. We just got to remask off the black. Now, just a word of warning, black can be a little translucent, so you got to be careful. Get it up under the light, make sure you got everything covered how you want it to be. You don't want to do all this work and then find out that it's hiding a see-through spot on you. Okay. Okay, that looks good, nice and smooth. That all looks good. I don't see anywhere where, well, a little spot right there I'm not happy with. Okay. Okay. There's that. Let that dry. And then we'll come in and we'll mask off the rest of it. and I will primer the top and we'll paint the top, and then we'll be done with this portion of it. So let me let that dry and we'll come back in and we'll start getting the masking done and the primer done. Okay, so we have the ship all taped up. I taped it up 2 different ways, and I'll show you what I did and why I did that when we get done painting it. It took forever to mask off, so I didn't want to do that on video and bore you too much. So let's get this going with the super primer. So just gonna hit it with this, and then we're gonna overtop it with this red oxide red, and I think that'll be perfect colors for this thing. So okay. Okay, so yeah, I need to go over this a little bit more. That's looking good though. I mean, you can see how it's turning out. So this primer is just some I had kicking around. I actually lightened it up to try something else with it, so it's not exactly our gray super primer, and so it's not as dark, and it's actually pretty close to the plastic color, which is fine. I mean, it's all right. I was saying you don't need to be a completely different color. It just needs to be different enough to be seen, and that certainly is. So Okay, that is that. All right. There's always a little bit less, always a little spot you miss. No, I'm done. It's great. No, there's a couple of spots. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry for a little bit, and then I'm going to clean out the airbrush, and then we're going to spray the oxide red. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, here comes the color. That's what I'm excited about. All right, let me actually move this over here so I run a very small risk of tipping it over. Oh yeah. Okay. Man, that is a lot of little spots that are getting missed. You gotta kind of really go over this thing. Holy cow. Okay, now see, there's a spot I missed. And this is what I was talking about with spraying the gray primer instead of the red. You know, you miss it with the gray, you know immediately. You miss it with the red, you might not notice it, and then later on you'd figure out that you had a spot. You had a spot that the colors didn't match, they didn't look right. If you're weathering the boat, I guess it really wouldn't matter that much, but I'm not, so. Okay, I gotta do a little bit in the back here, and I think that'll be about done. Okay. 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 Well, okay. I do believe, honestly, that is that. Cool. Okay. So let me, again, turn this off. We'll get the airbrush cleaned out, and I'll show you what I was talking about with the tape job on the side. Okay, so I just want to talk about this for a minute. So you're almost guaranteed to have to do some touch-up. So what I did on this was I taped it off two different ways. This way I taped it off where it's kind of back mask, so the new masking tape doesn't cover the old masking tape. So if you take this off the hole, you're going to be able to be able to peel this right off, and that tape is going to be right where you want it. So, like, as you can see, if you can see it, oh, here's the problem. Yeah, my light's not working very well. You can still see a little bit of the black marker line. So what you could do with if you taped it off this way, what you could do, so you just have to peel that back. And if you really wanted to, you could come back in. You could just come back in right now and just hit that with the airbrush and kind of clean up some of that edge. You can do it that way, but that took me almost a half hour to mask off that whole side of the boat. It took a while. And this side, I just simply eased out on it. Just took the easy route and just masked it off like normal. I don't know why it's doing that, but whatever. But as you can see, I just ran the one big strip of tape down the side of it. But as you can see, that thing looks awesome, doesn't it? So now when you unmask the bottom of it, if you want to do any touch-up with it, you'd have to come back in. You'd have to come in and remask that line, which is easy enough. And actually, I think this is the way I would recommend you do it, just because you can see how easy that would be to remask that thing. You don't need to go super fancy with it. So like right here, you can see where it kind of got under it. So I can just real easy just take a piece of tape and just tape that off, and then just real lightly airbrush back the black primer on, or the red primer on it. You'll never notice that. So anyway, that's two different ways of masking it off. You can see where that comes off, and it leaves you with the, you know, if you wanted to re-spray under there, you could have, but it masks, it pulls off real nice. All right, so I am super happy with that. That needs a little touch up right there. And like I said, it needs a little touch up right here, but again, you can just locally mask those off. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to finish peeling this off, and then I'll mask that, and I'll show you what I'm talking about for doing the touch up with it, and then we'll be ready for decals on this thing. Okay, so I'm just going to mask this off and show you this real quick, so you can see how easy it is to fix this stuff. Just make sure that's right on the line. That rolls over nice, looks good on the line there. Okay. And then we're just going to shoot, or we're not going to shoot, we're going to shoot red primer, but we're going to pour some of this in here real quick. And one of the nice things with working with the base coats, there's hardly a part line in that. I don't think you're going to notice that when you paint it, because paint, when you shoot it up against the tape, it wants to build up over it. It leaves a little, it'll come up and leave a little step, and then when you peel the tape off, you'll have that little step, but there's no tape behind it, so it's just a little wall right there. But yeah, so then just take this. You might want to turn your paint down, your air down a little bit, so you're not shooting so much air. Because the theory is the more air you spray, the more paint you spray. But just come in here really nice and lightly. Make sure that covers without a ton of, you don't need it anywhere else but right there. And it kind of fixed it. It needs to be redone again, actually. Let me redo it. And this is the thing, you could do this as many times as you think you need to. Okay. Again, just and there you go. That's a nice crisp line, huh? Got the same thing going on the bow up here. These ship models are I mean, Okay. And again, just real lightly. Okay. See, that looks a lot better, huh? That already looks okay on this side. It looks good, but I think I could do better. So I'm gonna try. I probably needed a bigger strip of tape. Well, no, that's okay. Oh, I just did that, didn't I? That's fine. Felt a little stickier than it actually was. Okay. Strip that back, and yeah, look at that. Oh, that looks really good. Look how good that looks, huh? No more of that line. Everything's nice and super smooth. Really nice delineation on that. Okay. Okay, so that's going to be that for this episode. That's the basic paint work. For the next one, we're going to come in and we're going to do the decals, which is going to be really easy. There's only like a few of them. You got the markings for the ship, the Hapag-Lloyd. I don't know how to pronounce that. I probably said it wrong, but anyway, you got that, and then you got the name of the ship, of course, and then you've got some waterline markings, it looks like, and then you got your thruster and your bow decal. So it seems simple enough. You got the little shield on the front and the name and the registration stuff on the back. So yeah, it's pretty easy. And yeah, it's pretty easy. And I'm sure the decals are just as nice as everything else on this ship. So anyway, that'll be our next episode. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.